started off to connect the world's professionals and make them more productive and successful. And hopefully all of you who put your hands up have had some benefit from LinkedIn for free. That was the whole basis of the business. Our free members get huge value from the site. The monetization piece happened later on, but the key thing was to get you engaged and to have some value, particularly in your business life. Growth has been huge, and it continues. Like, literally every second, there's 2 new members. There's 2 more. There's 2 more, probably in China or India, and it's just growing and growing and growing. We think the total number is about 600 million knowledge workers in the world, and we're up to 313, but we still have work to do. What we do for our members is the first thing we do is we give you a place to build your identity. So if you're going into a meeting, the first thing people typically do is Google your name. Your LinkedIn profile should come up within the first or second hit. Your LinkedIn profile is now more than just a resume. It is your showcase. It's everything you have done in your career. So it is a massive marketing tool as much as anything else. Can I ask, well, I won't ask this because you'll be amazed. The biggest tip I could offer for anyone who has a profile is to make sure you have a photograph. You'd be amazed how many people still don't do that. You get 14 times more response rates if you have a photograph on your profile. There's lots of other tips I can share with you, but you're now in an audience of 313 million, so there is a great technique and a way of making sure you get found. We also obviously help you with networks, and I'll talk about that in a sec. And the really interesting piece is how we're becoming a digital platform. So you've got people like Richard Branson posting incredible insights into what his world is like and sharing it. And this is bringing in a whole range of users, particularly the Facebook generation, who really have only known Facebook and suddenly think, well, LinkedIn is for serious people. But actually, I'd be interested to see what it would be like to start a business. So people like Richard Branson, it was the influencer program who could put posts out. Now everyone can put posts out. You could become your own publishing engine. And it's a great way of sharing knowledge. The way we help our customers, 3 ways. So on the hiring side, this business didn't exist really 7 years ago. And this is now a $1 billion business. And we've helped clients find the best talent in the world by getting access to the LinkedIn community. That has completely transformed recruitment. And that business has really powered our growth in a way. 20% of our business is helping CMOs with our marketing. And we've made an interesting acquisition with Bizzo recently in July, where we're now looking at how we can nurture. If you look at the sales funnel and we look at nurturing outside email, that's a key part of that plan. The area I want to talk about a little bit now is how we're helping sales teams. We realize that out of all the communities we have on LinkedIn, the biggest predominant group are business development and salespeople. And we figured out, well, how can we help them do their jobs better? And this is where the B2B world has changed in terms of selling, and this is what we're going to talk about in a sec. So we want to be at the start of every sales opportunity, and I'll show you what that means. So here's Bernard, say a B2B sales guy, selling into CIOs. Relationships in selling, most important thing, we're not going to change that. That's still the fundamental reason people believe in you and your product. Relationships are absolutely key. But how does someone like Bernard manage the complexity of a relationship? How does he use technology to do his job a bit better? Now, the reason he has to do that is because things have changed, and I think Dale touched on this as well in the previous conversation, is if you think of a CIO today versus 15 years ago, they had complete control over their budgets, and they had a lot of knowledge. You could argue maybe the suppliers had even more knowledge. What's completely changed now are our CIOs suddenly have a huge amount of information at their fingertips, but also their budgets are disappearing a little bit. You have head of marketing, head of digital, head of customer service, all now getting involved in that decision to go with a certain supplier. The Corporate Executive Board have done lots of studies on this, but they reckon there are 5.4 people who now make a decision on a B2B. How do they reckon the 0.4? I don't know, but the point is a salesperson now has to be very well spread in those accounts. You can't just have one key contact point. The other thing is decision makers, and Dale spoke about this very well, is they have more knowledge than ever before. They reach out to their own networks, perhaps on LinkedIn, and they really want to edge out the salesperson in a way because they're getting great information. And 75% of a B2B buyer now uses social media to keep informed. So how does a salesperson in a B2B environment play in that space? And this is where a LinkedIn profile and how they use posts can start to plant a seed and share content that could be relevant. The other thing we're seeing is target buyers are really, particularly the senior levels, are really impossible to get hold of. I spend my time talking to some amazing companies in the UK, and they still use the word cold calling. And I'm thinking, what's the success rate of cold calling? Now, we're looking at all the stats, and the results are just going down and down and down. They're horrible to receive. They're horrible to... It's incredible. That seems to still be a tool to help the sales team, and we think we can really try and tackle that. So those are the three problems we're trying to fix when we launched what we now call the Sales Solutions business. We're trying to help salespeople find more people very quickly on LinkedIn. We're trying to help them influence key buyers before a buying decision has been made, and also trying to get into senior people. And I'm going to focus on how to get into senior people in a sec, because this is what I think is the most exciting part of this. So what I'm going to talk about is particularly the networks. So what we have designed is a salesperson now can start to use LinkedIn more than just a network tool. It really has become a sales productivity tool. And I'll show you the first thing we have done is we're trying to kill the cold call, and we're trying to bring in, which is a very simple idea, warm introductions in a sales cycle. And what I mean by this, here is an in map. I don't know if any of you have seen this, but this is a graphical representation of people's networks. In this case, this is my network, and I've got different colors based on, I used to work in Microsoft and Accenture, and I've got all sorts of amazing networks around the world. But that's me, and that's all that I have on LinkedIn. But my colleagues who also work at LinkedIn have incredible networks as well. So how do we try and leverage those networks? So what we have done is we've allowed salespeople to start tapping into the wider networks to get warm introductions to opportunities. And it makes sense, particularly when you're going in at senior levels. The introductions you're going to get will have to be through a mutual connection. But up until now, it's really been a spontaneous conversation. When I worked for, it was a story of one of the companies I worked with. We had lost a major deal. And the key decision maker, we were all sitting in a room, kind of crying. We'd lost a big deal. And one of our CEOs walks in and says, tell me about why we lost the deal. And we went through the names of the people that we had to influence. And he said, if you had only told me I went to college with this guy, I play golf with this guy, those kind of conversations happen all the time. But wouldn't it be great if now that becomes a company asset? And this is what we're doing with this Sales Navigator tool. So here's an example. Say Noah is someone of real interest. He's an IT buyer. I find him on LinkedIn using the Sales Navigator tool. I can find more people because I've got extra access. But it's telling me who in my company could potentially introduce me to Noah. A very simple idea, but profoundly useful, because a salesperson can't go in at C-levels without an introduction. And this is where we think it's going to start changing, that sales guys will now be able to leverage all of the networks in an organization. When they get onto the Navigator tool, they also can check if anything has happened with those connections. So say I'm prospecting into BP. If the CIO in BP changes a profile, puts up a post, anything of relevance to me, I'll be alerted in seconds. If I'm looking at a profile and I see this is a CIO buyer, we'll also recommend people who could be very interesting to you in this 5.4 decision-making problem we have, because we will suggest other people based on title and based on your preference. So it really gives the B2B sales guy massive ability to keep very close to customers at scale. And I spent a lot of time, and I love Dale's analogy of the mum and dad in marketing and sales. It's very interesting when we talk about these offerings, the salespeople get it in seconds. Marketing are saying, well, hang on, we have traditional routes, and yes, our lead gen team is working. But when you explain this has to come together, sales and marketing must come together and equip the sales teams to effectively be a little bit like your marketing machine. That's when the penny drops and you realize that this is going to be a very significant enabler for salespeople. Now, what's even more interesting, I think, is how you measure it. And I was fascinated by some of the conversations earlier on about how do you measure the effectiveness in this world. Now, there is, within what we now call social selling, we think there is a way you can start to measure it. And we're looking at how you're leveraging your professional brand to fill your pipeline with the right people, insights, and relationships. And we do this. We look at about 15 things from your salespeople on the network, and we look at how well their profiles are filled in. We look at, are they finding the right people? We look at, are they engaging with insights? And we look at how they're building relationships over time. And we come up with a score, and we say your social selling index is X compared to your peer group and compared to the rest of the industry. And this is where things are going to start to get really interesting. So we think the social selling index will be an incredible barometer of how socially active or how professional your salespeople are in using these tools. And we can track this. And this is where I think it's going to be a bit of a game changer, because running sales teams, it's an incredible expense. It's an incredible, the science and the art of relationship building is huge. But imagine if you can start to track it and you can see who's making progress. And if you're looking after the BP relationship, how is your social selling index in that account in BP, and how has it changed over the last 5 months? This is where things will really start to change. So we can track, you know, the quality of the networks that your sales guys have. And this is one example where we're looking at the quality of the networks at VP and decision maker. And in this case, over time, it had an increase in 30%. But suddenly you have visibility on a very bizarre world of enterprise selling. And you can start to kind of really analyze who's doing what. We think it's important because those with the highest social selling index are very likely to be the ones who are most successful in their roles. What's happening next at LinkedIn is we want to create economic opportunity for the entire global workforce, 3 billion. And we want to do this by, if you're trying to find work, LinkedIn is a natural place to be. If you're in a job but you're looking for the dream job, we can equip you and help you with knowledge and insights to find that job. And then when you have your dream job, we really want you to be sharing expertise and helping others come along. We call it the economic graph. And the reason we think this will work is because we have now a lot of people on the network. But what's interesting is how many companies are now there. There's over 3.5 million active companies who are on LinkedIn sharing openings, sharing ideas of what they're doing. We also have loads of jobs out there. So suddenly this globe starts to spin faster. We also have endorsements. So the profile you're reading is going to be more supported and encouraged by your peer group. And this again creates another area of interest. We have a huge amount of students, 39 million students now, who are using LinkedIn to understand what it's really like to be a CMO. What would it really be like if I do that MA in computer science? What will I end up doing? And suddenly you get insights and knowledge you've never seen before. And this is all because of this one community that we're privileged to be able to carry. So you've got over 1 billion network updates all circling around. And this is where we think we'll really connect talent with opportunity at massive scale. So thank you for being a member. Have a good evening. You deserve that bottle or a glass of wine. Thank you.